Views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
This show's audio was via a Skype call.
Welcome to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek. Marge was searching for the purpose of her life and the truth that would tie everything together to make sense of what was taught and what was happening on our planet, the fire that was creating all the smoke. Through many experiences, she was finally led to the knowledge book that provided all the answers. Marge is now talking about this gift to humanity on Knowledge Book Radio, so all can be united in peace, love, and harmony. This live call-in show at 1-800-930-2819 is amazing. So get ready to hear about the Knowledge Book. Here's your host, Marge Ptaszek.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marge Ptaszek, and you are listening to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek on Transformation Talk Radio. So for the next hour, as we have been doing for the past year and a half, I guess, we will continue to cover some topics from the Knowledge Book. And this time we're going to be talking about magnetic fields. How are they formed? How do they interact? And how do I know what kind of a magnetic field I have? Okay. So in terms of magnetic fields, we're all familiar with, before we go on with the magnetic fields, I already forgot to mention our website, and that is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. The main center World Brotherhood Union website is www.dkbdavidkiteboy-mevlana.org.tr. My own telephone number is 973-787-7035. Email address is mmjp@gmail.com. So please do email me or text me with any questions that either arise from the topics that we are covering this week or from previous shows. And if you have a particular topic that you would like us to delve into or discuss or whatever, please do send them to us either through email or through text. I also have a WhatsApp account, so you can also do it that way as well. Okay, so now we go back to magnetic fields. So how are magnetic fields formed? When we look at the world and look at the physical example, magnetic fields are formed according to science by charges that are moving, by point charges that are moving, such as electrons. And they produce very complicated but also well-known and documented magnetic fields that depend directly on the charge of the point particle, the velocity at which it is speeding, and the acceleration under which it is undergoing. So, and then the magnetic field lines themselves form concentric line circles around a cylindrical current-carrying conductor, such as a length of wire. So if anyone remembers from their physics classes, if you have your thumbs up sign or thumbs down sign, if the current is running along, from the base of your palm to your thumb, to the top of your thumb, then if that's the electrical current, then your fingers will be pointing in the direction that the magnetic field is going. I have never forgotten this. But anyway, so this kind of a magnetic field is formed through electricity flowing through a wire. However, how are magnets formed? What is this magnetism, and where does it come from? Apparently, we have a natural substance, an iron ore called magnetite. It is naturally magnetic. It naturally automatically has their electrons aligned in a certain direction, and they have a magnetic field corresponding to that direction, and that magnetite, that iron ore, is known as a lodestone. And this lodestone can be used to magnetize other substances. Things like iron, things like steel can be magnetized by having this lodestone placed next to it for a length of time. Because once that something, that let's say an iron bar, is placed next to that lodestone, then that bar in that magnetic field that is giving a magnetic force then is able to magnetize that particular piece of iron, and then that iron itself then retains that magnetic field and is able to then also be used to magnetize something else. So they retain their magnetic properties once they have been magnetized. You could also create a magnetic field if you put a coil of wire around certain materials. And then when you put an electric current flowing through that coil, then again that creates a magnetic field. And this magnetic field will actually magnetize any kind of what are called ferromagnetic metals that are inside that coil. So if you want to magnetize a piece of iron or steel, if you surround that piece of iron or steel with wire and you run a current through that wire, then that will magnetize that piece of iron that's inside that coil. Now, of course, we know, and we've played with magnets when we were small, or we could still play with magnets now. Right now, there's like refrigerator magnets, right? So they also have like very weak magnets and they have very strong magnets. There was something that my daughter gave me. They're little piglets and they have they're tiny. They're maybe, 3/4 of an inch in length, but they're very, very strong. Now, you know what happens, with magnets. If you put like poles together, they will repel each other. No matter how much you force those pieces of magnet together, you will not be able to get them together. However, if you put the opposite poles, meaning south with the north, then that automatically retract. And if they're very strong magnets, you'll have a hard time separating them. So magnets, depending on how strong they are on the physical level, can attract other objects like paper clips if it's a weak magnet, or you could create a magnet strong enough to pick up several tons of metal, scrap metal, or cars. Okay, so that goes a little bit how magnetic fields work in the physical realm. Now, what about our human body? Does a human body have a magnetic field? When you think about it, our body is composed of about 73% water at birth. However, once we become an adult, we drop the percentage of water in our body to about 60%. Interestingly enough, women, because they have a less muscle mass and more fat mass, they have less water than men. Okay, so it's a little bit less than 60%. So women have less than 60% water by mass in terms of weight in their bodies. Now, this water is distributed both within the bodies, meaning the tissues, the cells, and it also circulates as blood. Now, 20% of the water in a human body is in the blood. And blood, and of course water, and blood, which is what the water is, blood is composed of water. And of course, water has a charge. And when that charge circulates or moves, it produces a magnetic field. So if you think of our vascular system, our arteries and veins as wires, and as water being the electric charge running through those wires, circulating in our system, then of course, then the body then becomes a dynamo of sort, and then it produces a magnetic field also. Of course, it's a weak one, but it's still a magnetic field. Now, biomagnetism is what is called when the magnetic fields are produced by living things, especially the human body. Now, when we have a study called magnetobiology, is the study where magnetic fields are being applied to the human body, affecting some change in the human body. But biomagnetism itself is where we ourselves or whatever exists actually has its own magnetic field and produces its own magnetic field. Now, of course, the body's magnetic fields are very weak because the pole charge of the water molecules is not that strong. And they have devised some detectors, very sensitive detectors, to measure the strength of a magnetic field. Now they are also encountering some difficulties because they need to find and need to create a room, a space in which other magnetic fields cannot come in and interfere with whatever is being measured. So they established a machine called a SQUID, interestingly enough, and this stands for a superconducting quantum interference device. And when that machine is in that room and that room has has excluded most of any external magnetic disturbances, then they're able to measure the magnetic field of the human. So currently there's about 160 laboratories around the world where they're able to measure different fields from different parts of the body, but most of them are actually studies focused on the magnetic field of the brain. And now they're producing something called a magnetoencephalogram, or MEG, as opposed to the EEG, which is an electroencephalogram. And this is, again, producing valuable new information about how the normal human brain functions and what it does and what kind of fields it produces. This is very interesting in terms of, in conjunction with this knowledge book studies, because it is through the knowledge book studies that we are exercising our brains and are attempting through our evolution to have higher and higher speeds of thought, and therefore to produce and have a stronger and stronger magnetic field and have brain power. Okay. So this MEG is now proving also to be able to maybe diagnose some clinical abnormalities in the brain. And it's a new window into how the body generally works, and specifically how the brain works. Now, of course, we all know, that a strong magnet will attract more and be more powerful than a weak magnet. Now, we also know that similar poles or same poles, north to north or south to south, will always repel each other. And opposite poles, north to south or south to north, will always attract each other. And the magnetic fields are actually cumulative. When you put magnets together, the magnetic field grows. And this is how huge magnets that are used to lift cars can then release cars. Now, we're talking positive and negative, meaning attractive or repulsive forces. So when they are lifting huge cars and tons of metal with a magnet, that magnet is formed by electricity flowing through that lifting device. And what they do is when they switch the electric current going from one direction to the opposite direction, then that attractive force becomes a repulsive force because that steel has now been magnetized, in which case the car is dropped. And it is placed where the control is specifically done on turning the magnetic fields back and forth so that the cars can be either picked up or dropped. Now, of course, when we are in a very strong magnetic field, those magnetic fields can also affect our bodies. And this, according to science, is being done in 3 different ways. You have weak currents that can be induced in the body. You could have electric charges that can be built up on the surface of our skin and hair. And also our body's voltage can increase. And that's why the field produces weak electric currents in the body. We've also had static electricity charge, right? If you're going along in a very dry atmosphere and you're producing static electricity, next thing you know, when you touch something, you'll have an electrical discharge, okay? So everything, every living and non-living thing has its own magnetic field, depending on how much energy it has. So stones, grass, beetles, flies, trees, furniture, marbles, anything, our hands, whatever it is, they have their own magnetic fields. Now, the magnetic fields themselves cannot be mixed. Everything was created in such a way that every magnetic field is separate. It can affect each other, but they cannot be in the same place. Because if you think also as magnetic fields being a dimension, and each dimension has a specific frequency, two frequencies cannot be at the same place at the same time. So if you have a red color and a blue color, you'll have a blue color or a red color. Those two frequencies will not be mixed. Okay, they will. So this is what we're talking about. Magnetism was on a physical level. But now we're going to talk about how magnetism and our magnetic fields actually function based on the knowledge book and what the knowledge book says. Now, magnetic fields, according to the knowledge book, are very strong energy knots formed by thoughts. The higher the energy, the stronger the magnetic field. So just as on the physical level, the higher the energy, the stronger the magnetic field. Therefore, the greater will be the attraction power of that magnetic field. However, the magnetic field formed by thought will attract like thoughts. In other words, if I'm thinking positive thoughts, I will attract those individuals who have similar thoughts to mine, meaning positive, and those individuals will come to us. If we have negative thoughts, oh, everything is going bad, everything is awful, everything is bad, nothing works, I don't have time, I can't do this, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, whatever, those kinds of thoughts will produce a magnetic field and will draw to ourselves those same things that we're thinking about. On the other hand, when we are more and more charged with positive, with a charge on, maybe this is something else and we could cover later, but anyway. So when we look around, if we walk into a room, there are certain individuals that automatically stand out to us, right? And we call them that they have great charisma. You immediately notice their presence. They have usually a large following. They are easily able to convey their ideas to the people that are surround them. And when you also think about some of the adages that have come down, something like, show me your friends and I know who you are, or birds of a feather flock together. So similar thoughts or similar magnetic fields attract each other. And this is how groups are formed. This is how organizations are formed. This is how committees are formed. This is how NGOs or non-governmental organizations are formed as well. People with like thoughts will gather together, whether it's for the positive goal or for the negative goal, whether it's political parties that are out to or whatever parties or whatever organizations are formed for a positive aim or a negative aim, they will come together because those individuals are on a similar wavelength, and they come together because of that wavelength, because it is that magnetic field that they have formed that is then attracting others that are similar to them, okay? So again, according to the knowledge book, many thoughts that are similar in nature attract each other and form magnetic fields in separate mediums, whether that's horizontally or vertically, depending on how powerful the thoughts are. So this is how the places of worship were formed. This is how churches' magnetic fields, mosques' magnetic fields, ashrams' magnetic fields are formed. Meditation places' magnetic fields are formed. So this is very interesting as to how things work. I went to Turkey back in 2010, and I met a gentleman from Poland and who had promised me to take me to a mosque, give me a little bit of a tour since he's been there, lived there for a while. So we went on our way to go to visit a particular mosque. Now, of course, we're going from point A to point B, so we're walking at a fairly good pace, and we're talking normally, street level sounds coming out of our mouths, walking down the street. Interestingly enough, that the split second that both of us crossed the threshold into the property of the mosque, both of us, our steps slowed down and our voices dropped in volume. It was amazing. Somehow that magnetic field that was formed of peace and tranquility in that mosque just kind of slowed us down, and our voices went lower. Now, we didn't notice this until further on in as we were walking, and then I was surprised, my goodness, what are we doing? We've slowed down, and our voices are lower, okay? So this is the kind of effect that magnetic fields have on us fairly quickly, okay? Now, this is the kind of field that was formed through powers of thought. This is brain power. Now, this is a brain power that is produced by thought, is now at a different speed of thought, not at world frequency. If you remember, world frequency is zero frequency. So this is where we all start from. Now, there are also magnetic fields that are formed in the atmosphere from all the thoughts of the humans, whether positive, such as love, such as tolerance, such as acceptance, such as the thoughts of angels, etc., or whether those thoughts are negative, like anger, like jealousy, like hate, like fear, like discrimination. So those magnetic fields are formed, and these horizontal magnetic fields attract those consciousnesses that are on a similar coordinate. Now, okay, I've often heard, and I have often had the question, so what is a coordinate? Now, when you talk about algebra, a coordinate is any two numbers that places a particular location, or you can find a particular location on a graph that has an X or a Y axis. So you need two numbers, where it is on the Y line, Y axis, or where it is on the X axis. As long as you know, let's say you have a point of 3, 4. So you'll have three grid marks across and 4 grid marks up. But anyway, bottom line is a coordinate will let you know exactly where you are. This is how the GPS works. It is able to locate where you are on the grid of the planet, and is able to then to navigate you to another location, another coordinate where you want to go on that planet. So you need both points to find that location on an XY coordinate. So this is also similar to magnetic fields. Now, let's say if a magnetic field has an energy of love, let's give it an arbitrary number, let's say number 5. So you have a magnetic energy, or have an energy of love at 5 level. It'll form a magnetic field at the 5 level. Then anyone who is at the has a thought consciousness of 5 or lower will be able to be attracted to that 5 level of love magnetic field that has been formed. Similarly, if that magnetic field has been formed by a 5 level of fear, then anyone with a level of 5 or lower will be attracted to this magnetic field with that particular coordinate. So basically, coordinate is something that says you are at this particular location. When the knowledge book talks about coordinate, it could mean the evolution level that you are, the consciousness level that you are, the frequency or the energy level that you are at, okay? And this is how we literally create our own heavens and hells. When we are constantly in fear, when we always see the glasses always half empty, can always see what horrible things could happen next, or how things we can fail, or how things can fall apart. That's exactly what we are drawing to ourselves, because our thoughts, our consciousness at that point can only attract that negativity to us. Now, those individuals who have a greater acceptance of what is as it is, and therefore are more positive, will be able then to attract only success and prosperity to themselves. Now, as it says in the knowledge book, when 3 people are together, this is a unified field, okay? And depending on the consciousness of those individuals in this magnetic field, they have the attraction power of that field, and that attraction power is directly proportional to the thoughts produced in that field. If that magnetic field, those 3 people love each other, tolerate each other, accept each other, see themselves, they see the essence with the essence in that magnetic field, then they will be attracting, they will be reflecting that coordinate to horizontally. In council, you reflect horizontally, and that magnetic field of love, tolerance, and acceptance, that positive magnetic field, will be attracting those consciousnesses that have a similar coordinate. Okay, the same thing goes for focal points. When the solar teachers in a focal point are the solar teachers that have love, tolerance, acceptance to each other, love and see each other from the essence, then that focal point becomes an attractive magnetic field that is able to then attract those individuals to the magnetic field that are needed by that focal point. So the question can be then, how do you know you're on the same coordinate? Okay, well, if you like the same things, if you find it comfortable to be with that person and you're being in agreement with that person, if you're born in the same location, you will be on the same coordinate, because the place of birth is your coordinate that you had when you were born. So anyone who was born in the same city are the same coordinate, okay? So when a person is talking apples and the other person talks about zebras, then you're definitely on a different coordinate. Okay. So any kind of thoughts of love, of friendship, of tolerance, and patience that are present in the unified field will always attract consciousnesses on a similar coordinate. And those coordinates of friendship, tolerance, and patience are those individuals who then are actually ready for the knowledge book. So it is critical for us to basically be in the consciousness of love, of friendship, and tolerance, and patience, and all the good qualities for us to be able to attract those individuals with the same qualities. Okay? We will never be able to attract people to our studies when we have negative thoughts, or when we are negative, or when we are in fear or anxiety or doubt or discrimination. Now, let's go back to the magnetic field once again. Now, a stronger magnetic field will always have more attraction power than a weaker magnetic field. That's kind of logical. It makes sense. So if a person has a strong magnetic field, then that strong magnetic field can overpower a weaker person and take that person under their power. In negative situations, this kind of a situation is being obsessed by the more powerful magnetic field, by the more powerful person. So how does this person escape from this overpowering, what seems to be overpowering individual that has taken you and are basically influencing you to do stuff? Okay. Well, in such a case, it is the person's own willpower that is able then to take themselves out of that magnetic field. On a positive note, a strong magnetic field is what is needed in a teacher-student relationship. However, here the influence and attraction power is positive, and it nourishes the weaker consciousnesses. And this is how the religious influences have been formed on our planet and have continued on to this day. And this is also how individuals come to know about the knowledge book. Once they themselves, through their evolutions, arrive at the magnetic field of 18th dimension or 72nd energy dimension, then they attract to themselves the method by which they come in contact with either an individual that's on a mission day, meaning needing to find someone to give a mission day fascicule to, or they find out about the situation of a focal point that exists in their city, or they find information on the internet about where they can get the knowledge book and start searching for this. So the knowledge book comes into their life. They attract the knowledge book into their lives, depending on the fact that they are now at the 18th dimension or 72nd energy dimension. They have an evolution level that allows them to do that. Now, of course, world dimension magnetic fields are very different than the knowledge book or universal magnetic fields. They're completely different. Chaos, examinations, and problems exist in the world magnetic field. And when you are in a world magnetic field, this will always fluctuate and fracture your universal magnetic field. So how do you get a strong magnetic field? You get a strong magnetic field when you have a conscious belief in the programs and do as the suggestions guide us to do. Okay? You need to be at an evolution level of at least 72nd energy and 18th dimension evolution in order to be able to be attracted to the knowledge book and gain entry into the knowledge book studies. So world thoughts such as negative thoughts, such as worry, such as anxiety, anger, discrimination, uncertainty, doubt, all of these will always drop you to the world frequency and disconnect you from the universal magnetic field. And this will always take you into the world of chaos and away from the tranquility of the universal magnetic field. So as you may have noticed, more and more people are able to communicate with each other non-verbally, meaning not through telephone, not through spoken word. They're able to telepathically communicate with each other. They're able to know who's going to be calling, or that something has happened to someone else on the planet, or they're able to see things they couldn't see before. So this is the phenomenon that's produced by the fact that our channels have been opened, and those channels connect to certain dimensions or magnetic fields. Now, every person comes from their own particular dimension. And that dimension, when the individual is connected through their channels to their own dimension, those are the mediums. Those are the individuals who are able to bring in knowledge from their own dimension to the world dimension. And these could be the world leaders. Those could be the individuals who come in with specific teachings from a specific dimension. These could be the spiritual leaders. These could be the world leaders. These could be those individuals who have a particular message to give to the rest of the planet. However, no matter how high a dimension they are getting the knowledge from, the frequency of that dimension will not be the knowledge that is being given. The frequency at which the knowledge is being given is not the frequency of their own dimension. Right now, there's a program in place that basically all the knowledge, no matter where it comes from, no matter how high a knowledge it may be, no matter how high the frequency of that knowledge is in the dimension that it exists, when it comes and is being transmitted by that individual, that knowledge is coming in only at the 72nd energy dimension or the 18th dimension, which is the entry level of the knowledge book. So no matter how much they're talking about and trying to pull you into their own sphere of influence, they're actually allowing you to grow and give you the energies of the 72nd energy dimension and the 18th dimension, which basically is a preparation for the knowledge book. So in order for us to have a strong magnetic field, our world or our dimension channels need to be closed and our universal channels need to be opened. That's the only way that we could have a truly positive magnetic field that is strong. So how do you do this? How is that actually accomplished? Number one, for us to be able to be connected to the universal channels, connected to the system, we need to be connected to join a study group. That's a council, that's a totality of 18, that's being a petal in a flower, that's being a petal in a flower in a totality of 18. This is also focal point studies. So when those individuals are connected to the study programs, they are then given, okay, and you need to follow the guidelines. Now, why are those guidelines given? My favorite question is, why are those, or the question that I get a lot of times is, why all these rules? Why all these regulations? What's going on? I don't like all these rules. It's too rigid. And of course, what I usually do is ask, okay, so why do we have stop signs? Why do we have gun laws? Why do we have traffic signals? Why do we have traffic laws? Why do we have any of the laws that we currently have on the books? It is basically to protect ourselves from ourselves. So I don't know if you remember what the Keystone Cops movies used to be, where there were no stop signs, no traffic regulations, speeding laws, seatbelt laws, everything. It is chaos and nobody knows which direction anybody is going and all kinds of accidents happen. So the laws are there to protect ourselves from ourselves and to enable us to be able to grow in a direction that we need to grow to be able to be safe and to be able to be productive humans, okay? Now, so how do we connect to the universal channel and not our world channel and our own dimension channel? Number one, join a study group and follow the guidelines. Again, join and follow the guidelines, okay? So those guidelines are given specifically to help us to be connected to the Knowledge Book Universal Channel, or what the Knowledge Book is calling AS.6.1 channel, okay, the AS61 channel. When you write the Knowledge Book, when you're doing the reading program, these two programs help us to get connected to the Knowledge Book magnetic field. However, we need to be in the study and in following the guidelines for our world channels to be closed and our universal channels to be opened. Excuse me. So how do you know whether your channels are opened or closed? Well, that's easy. What's happening around you? Are things clicking into place easily, and what you want and what you need at a particular time shows up when you need it and how you need it? If that's the case, then universal channel is open and your world channel is closed. Now, you know that your world channel is open and your universal channel is closed when you're in the middle of examinations, when you've only got troubles, when you've got problems, nothing seems to be going right. And if that's the case, then of course your world channel is open, because you're open then to the world chaos, and the universal channel is at that point closed. So when you think about it, it looks like there's some kind of a switch mechanism that controls which channel is open. So how do we get to that switch, and how do we, make sure that our universal channel is open and our world channel is closed? So again, number one, the possibility exists that your universal channel is open if you are in the studies, you're following the guidelines, and you're consciously doing the work. Now, meeting your responsibilities. But we ourselves cannot turn that switch in whatever way we want. It is the system that actually controls that switch. However, we give permission to the system to turn our universal channel off and our world channels off by what we think and by what we do. So this is one of the situations that both the celestial authorities and we find ourselves in. Although the celestial authorities have tremendous power and might, they are actually powerless. At the same time, they cannot do anything at all. Because they cannot in any way, shape, or form interfere with our free will. This is a law of the universe. This is something that is unchangeable. They cannot interfere with our free will. So unless we, with our free will, make the decision to actually follow the guidelines and do what was expected of us to protect us and allow us to grow and evolve in consciousness and have a bigger magnetic field, unless we do everything that we can through our own willpower and through our own logic, then we allow the system then to actually turn the switch to the direction where the universal channels are open, the world channels are closed, in which case everything flows smoothly as we're going along. Okay, fine, but what's going on? We're in the world dimension. We're stuck in the world dimension. How do we get out of it? What is the process by which that can be accomplished? Well, when you think about a laptop or when you think about a cell phone, that laptop and that cell phone is actually a very beautiful instrument that can do lots of things once they are turned on. And as long as they have an energy source that is able to then power it, okay? However, that laptop, that cell phone cannot turn themselves on, right? They need an external someone to flick that switch. So how do we switch from world to universal dimension? We do this by our own logic and by our own willpower. So when we use our reasoning capacity and logic to sift through the words given, to sift through the knowledge that is being given to us, to go through our life and trying to figure things out. When we test what is given and see what the results come out, and then we prove to ourselves what is true and what is not true, that's when we can turn through our logic and willpower and actually logically put and direct our steps to go in the right direction to allow us to get to that 18th evolution dimension and be able to walk on the path designed. And now it looks like it's time for us to take a break. So you've been listening to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek. And again, we'd like to remind you that our website is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. The telephone number for questions and topics is 973-787-7035. When we come back, we will continue with the book with the magnetic fields discussion. So until then, please stay tuned. We will be right back.
To find answers to life's questions, you need to look within yourself. Dr. Glenna Rice brings your questionable conversations on Transformation Talk Radio each month. Tune in each month for insight into how you can live up to your full potential. Dr. Glenna is a physical therapist, certified Access Consciousness, and Access Body Class facilitator. How does it get any better than this? For more information on Dr. Glenna Rice and her work, visit glennarice.com.
Gifted intuitive healer and spiritual teacher Sarah Luce brings her unique style to the hit show Small Steps, Big Breakthrough Radio on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in each month as Sarah turns reality on end and shows us how to experience expansive results with simple yet powerful steps. Expect an enlightening bend on what you currently believe is possible. For show details and upcoming topics, visit sarahluce.com. That's SARALOOS.com.
What is a brilliant culture, and how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you align your culture with your business strategy for exceptional results. Looking for a culture that drives organizational excellence? Listen to Cultural Brilliance Radio, the second and fourth Friday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit culturalbrilliance.com.
Our angels and animals are always working for and around us. Darcy Pariso knew from an early age she felt this incredible presence that was confirmed for her in a Reiki Level 1 course. From then on, she has honed her skills and dedicated her talents to providing answers, inspiration, and tools for people to move past limiting blocks and past traumas to truly live a life of happiness. For more information about working with Darcy, visit darcypariso.com.
Take your own journey with the angels with Claire Candy Huff's Heaven Sent Guided Angel Meditation CD. Letting go of concerns and living in the now. This beautiful CD walks listeners through practical exercises to help free them from the burdens, worries, and concerns of daily life.
Walking a quarter of the way across the bridge, you see a bright, emerald green light and sense a loving presence. This is Archangel Raphael's green healing energies, nourishing and revitalizing you. Take a moment now to bathe in this green healing light.
Giving you much more than just relaxation and stress release, this wonderfully narrated CD provides vivid visualization, soothing and inspiring music, and an angel's choir that will bring you peace, clarity, and a newfound awareness. Visit angelhealinghouse.com today.
Okay, and we're back on the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek on Transformation Talk Radio. So again, our website is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. It contains lots of useful information about the studies, about the reading program, about the council program, about the Totalities of 18 program. You can find the location of focal points on the website as well. In terms of getting in contact with us here, it's 973-787-7035, or email is mmjp99@gmail.com, maryjohnpeter@gmail.com. This is for questions about the topics on the show, suggestions for the topics on the show, any comments that you would like to make, or again, questions, suggestions. 973-787-7035 and mmjp99@gmail.com. Okay. So we've been talking about magnetic fields in the past 45 minutes or so, and we will continue on that topic. So first of all, we talked about the physical realm, the crude matter forms, that magnetism is basically a natural substance that has a force field and that can magnetize and that can also charge different metals and make them magnetic as well. And those magnets formed by other magnets, they also have the same characteristic as the magnet that it was magnetized by. Magnetic fields, of course, are strong and weak depending on the force and depending on the energy of that magnet. Magnets of the same pole repel each other. Magnets of dissimilar pole attract each other. Okay. Now, so we're talking on the physical level, magnets. Now, we also talked about the fact that the body itself also has a magnetic field, and that magnetic field is produced by the current of our blood in our circulatory system, in our arteries and veins, and that produces a magnetic field. We talked about our physics courses where if we have a thumbs up sign, then if the direction of current is in the direction of the thumb, then the magnetic field will be the direction that the fingers are pointing, okay? Now that was the physical realm. On the knowledge book level, magnetic fields are formed through thought and through the power of thought, okay? Now, and people could have strong magnetic fields or weak magnetic fields. And here in the magnetic fields, as far as people are concerned, and on the knowledge book level is concerned, like magnetic fields or like thoughts attract each other, and dissimilar magnetic fields repel each other. Okay. However, that's not completely the case, because if a person has a very strong magnetic field, which means they have a very strong positive force, they will attract the negativity towards them. In which case, the positive effect of that strong magnetic field and the positive aura that person has eventually over time will overcome the negativity of the other persons. And this is how the knowledge book programs actually work. The individuals who are in a council, in a totality of 18, in a flower, are building up their magnetic field. They're building up their positive energies, because as we are doing the studies in the knowledge book, we are, through those studies, increasing our positive energy and decreasing our negative energy. We are allowing ourselves to evolve through the practice, through the medium of acceptance, tolerance, love, friendship, patience. All those good qualities are basically, you're on the treadmill that allows you to build very strong muscles of patience, tolerance, love, goodwill, and seeing the essence of the other individual with your own essence, okay? So this is how the knowledge book works. When we have 3 people in a study or 18 people in a study, the magnetic field that is formed does a reflection. And depending what's going on in that unified field with those 3 people, if there is love and there's tolerance and there's acceptance, there's patience, then that kind of a magnetic field then attracts those individuals in the area to that magnetic field. Also, that magnetic field becomes a strong influence of helping the surrounding area to decrease their negativity and increase their positivity and go much more quickly through their training levels to be able to come into the knowledge book. Now, in the case of a council that has a focal point, when there is tolerance, love, and acceptance, and all those good qualities in that magnetic field, then when there are 21 people at the focal point, that focal point affects all the people within the city that they are in. So those individuals are helped by cosmos, by the system, to live where it is best for them to live, to find the job that is best for them to have, and be able to then navigate and be able to evolve in such a way to get them closer to the knowledge book and get them closer to the place where they will be connected to the peace and tranquility of the universal dimension, as opposed to be locked up and stuck in the world dimension of chaos and negativity. Okay. Now, there's also a reflection mechanism in a council. In the West, the reflection mechanism is 1 to 1,000. In a totality of 18, the three individuals who are the nucleus of that totality of 18, those individuals reflect 1 to 10,000. And the remainder 15 people reflect 1 to 1,000, which is just like a council. So these individuals have the potential, by reflecting 1 to 1,000, the fact that they are able to influence and help at least 1,000 individuals, and the core of the nucleus of the totality of 18 is able to overcome and eventually overpower and dissolve the negativity in the other members. Conversely, it's also the case. If there is negativity in the nucleus, if there's negativity in the council, there's negativity in the focal point or between the petals in the focal point, the flowers in the focal point, then it becomes a destructive force. So it is very critical for everyone to be able to be conscious of the fact that always positive thoughts and positive reactions come into play and into force. And that will always allow you to have a strong magnetic field, to always be connected to the universal dimension, and be able to successfully and easily walk on the path design, okay, and get us to the next higher dimension and the level of a genuine human, a real human, and go back home, literally go back home. Now, what happens if, let's say, you need to go places or do things, and then how are you going to function in, let's say, in places where different teachers are, or different music is playing, or what is going on? So in that case, it depends how strong your magnetic field is. If your magnetic field is strong because you are a positive individual who has no worry, who does not discriminate, who is able to accept everything as it is because it is, then you have no worry. You can go anywhere and do anything, and you will be only attracting to yourself that individuals and be in those places that will be conducive to you to do your mission. However, if you're constantly worried, constantly in discrimination and differentiating people from people and saying this is good, this is bad, this is indifferent, this is good, I like, I don't like, then if that's the case, then your magnetic field is going to be weaker. The system will not be able to close your world channel, and you will be constantly in the world dimension, and you will be also always in chaos. So it is up to us completely. Now, in order for us to have conscious belief, we really do need to test things out. Now, I'm one of those individuals, as I've said before, when somebody tells me to go that way, I usually go the opposite way. I say usually, watch me. Okay, don't go there. And I go, watch me. I go by and I go in the opposite direction. I do not take what people tell me as the truth until I test it out. I think it out. I logically look at it, test it out. So if somebody says, okay, you will not be able to remember from anything from the knowledge book until you're at the frequency of the word for you to be able to remember it. Well, I read the first fascicle, read the second, I read the knowledge book maybe 10 times, 12 times, 15 times. I think to get up to now it's about 60 times. But when it came to certain fascicles, I don't remember what's in those fascicles. It is now that I remember that there's the law of universe that's being given in the first fascicle. However, I couldn't tell you that 5 years ago. I always forgot. So, okay, so fine. What they're telling me is true. What they're telling me is correct. I can believe it because I've logically proved it to myself. I could also test things out differently. Who are those individuals who've been in the knowledge book for a while? Now, the person who has been the longest in the knowledge book in the U.S. is like 10 years, or maybe in the programs 10 years. In Turkey, there are individuals who've been in the knowledge book programs for 30 years, for 40 years, for 50 years. And when you look at those individuals, and when you look at and see what they do, how they do it, and how they act, then you can see that they are the product as that comes out as a result of the knowledge book studies they have been able to conduct. So this is the proof of the pudding. This is us logically figuring out and believing, not because somebody told us to believe, but because we are convinced, we are sure. Now, the only way that we will be able to actually talk to people and the people believe us is if we ourselves actually believe in something. When do you know something is true? Something tells you in your bones that this is true, that you've tested it, that you've thought about it, that you've looked at it, and you've been able to logically conclude that is the only way to be, because everything else is canceled out. Okay, so, and now the time is going so fast when we're having fun. So it is now time to close. I just would like to remind you that there is a focal point in New York City. Please stop by. We'd love to see you. Any suggestions, please give to us. The Knowledge Book radio is every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek. We do travel to give conferences in other cities, so if that's what you would like, please do contact us. We'll be more than happy to come and visit. And of course, as we covered slightly here, what we do allows the supreme authorities to also act accordingly. They are powerless unless we give them the power, and we are the ones who will save the world. Thank you. See you next time.
You've been listening to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Ptaszek. Marge was led to the Knowledge Book, a gift to humanity, and its time of transition to the Golden Age that provided the truth and energies and frequencies. Now, she shares information from and answers questions about the Knowledge Book with you each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit Marge at usa.theknowledgebook.net.